Why I stopped trusting scale weight. What years of weigh-in data taught me about trends. For most of my dieting life, I treated the scale as a scoreboard. If the number went down, things were working. If the number went up, something had gone wrong. That sounds reasonable enough. The problem is that body weight and fat loss are not the same thing. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to fully appreciate that distinction. Part of the reason is that scale weight feels objective. You step on the scale, a number appears, and there it is, no interpretation required. Or so it seems. The reality is that the scale measures everything: body fat, muscle, water, glycogen, food volume, and digestive contents. And all of those variables can move independently from one another. As a result, a single weigh-in often tells you very little about what is actually happening. I didn't really understand this until I accumulated enough data to see it for myself. For years, I recorded my weight almost every day. At first, I was looking for confirmation. Eventually, I started looking for patterns. The patterns turned out to be much more interesting. One of the first things I noticed was how dramatically my weight could fluctuate without anything meaningful changing. A high-calorie day could produce a temporary increase. A restaurant meal could produce a temporary increase. A particularly high carbohydrate diet could produce, you guessed it, a temporary increase. Sometimes my weight would increase even when I had done everything right. At other times, it would decrease after a day that should have produced the opposite result. The scale wasn't lying. It was simply measuring more variables than I was accounting for. Creatine provided another reminder of that. Many people avoid it because it can increase scale weight, especially during the initial weeks of supplementation. But the increase is largely the result of additional water being stored within muscle tissue, rather than an increase in body fat. The scale goes up, yet body composition may actually be improving. It's a useful example of how easily scale weight and fat loss can become confused. Over time, I stopped paying much attention to individual weigh-ins. Instead, I started paying attention to trends. The trend didn't eliminate fluctuations, it made them easier to interpret. A single day no longer carried much emotional weight. What mattered was the direction of the trend over weeks and months. That shift changed the way I experienced dieting. The scale stopped becoming a daily judgment. It became a source of information. And information is much easier to work with than judgment. One of the stranger observations was that some of my most successful fat loss periods looked messy in the short term. There were spikes, there were plateaus, there were weeks that appeared unproductive. Had I only looked at isolated weigh-ins, I might have concluded that progress had stalled. The longer-term trend told a different story. The reverse was true as well. Occasionally, a few encouraging weigh-ins created the impression that everything was working perfectly. The trend sometimes revealed a less flattering reality. That's another reason I've come to prefer trends over individual data points. They are less susceptible to wishful thinking. The longer I tracked, the less interested I became in daily outcomes. I became more interested in averages, weekly averages, monthly averages, long-term trajectories. Eventually, I noticed the same tendency showing up everywhere else. Individual workouts stopped feeling particularly important. Individual days of eating stopped feeling particularly important. What mattered was the cumulative effect over time. That's probably the most useful lesson the scale has taught me. Not how much I weigh, but how difficult it can be to see meaningful change when you're standing too close to it. Most of us experience our bodies one day at a time. Fat loss doesn't occur that way. It emerges gradually from hundreds of decisions made over long periods. The scale captures pieces of that process. The trend captures the process itself. These days, I still weigh myself regularly. In fact, I probably weigh myself more often than most people. The difference is that I no longer expect a single weigh-in to tell me much. I'm interested in what happens next week, next month, next quarter. Because after enough years of tracking, I've come to trust trends far more than I trust any individual number. And when the trend is moving in the right direction, one unexpected weigh-in simply isn't very interesting anymore. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing. Or support the project on Buy Me a Coffee.